Welcome to this podcast for CityMusic Cleveland. This is Eric Kisch and Jim Mehrling for Musical Passions Productions, and we're very pleased to welcome for the CityMusic Cleveland concert two of the major artists that will be performing for us. Joel Smirnoff is returning as conductor after a hiatus of several years. He did his conducting debut with us for a very memorable Mozart concert some years back. And joining us is the stalwart Dan Gilbert, Clarinet Supremo for the orchestra and in Cleveland. And they are going to do a very interesting two-work program that I think we need to thoroughly discuss for a preview. So both of you, welcome back. And it is my pleasure to ask Dan, who probably will be playing the first work on the program, which is the Dreams of Isaac the Blind by Osvaldo Golijov, an Argentinian Jewish composer. I was going to say computer. Well, we're not into AI yet. He's a wonderful composer who's done extraordinarily memorable work. And this was premiered with the Cleveland Orchestra some years ago with Franklin Cohen, and it's a very interesting work. Dan, tell us a little bit about it, because I'm not sure many of our viewers will be familiar with what's going on.
Okay, well, the work is quite interesting in that I think it harkens back to his upbringing in, was it in Buenos Aires? I think where he grew up. There were lots of influences on his life. His family was obviously Jewish, and you can hear in the work lots of klezmer, which is a whole different approach to clarinet playing than what we classical players do. I actually reached out to an old friend of mine, Robin Seletsky, who was my sister's roommate at New England Conservatory, and asked her for a klezmer lesson on all these different flavors and shapes and noises that the clarinet makes when playing klezmer music. So I've done a lot of studying of that genre in preparation for this. I wish it could be more authentic, but I'll do my best.
You're not the first person who's realized that playing klezmer is very different. There's a very memorable documentary of Itzhak Perlman, who decided that he wanted to learn klezmer violin and went and studied with a few klezmer groups, realizing that he had no clue how to do that. And the documentary shows that he was a fast learner. And I expect on Friday night, on the Saturday of the concert, that we will hear that you have mastered this art. And are you going to allow dancing in the aisles?
It is definitely music of the people. And it's very much from the heart. I think there are actually some folk songs in it, Yiddish folk songs that are, klezmer staples. But then also he's written some melodies, and then it is interspersed, since it is a dream, and some of it is obviously a nightmare, in that there's a lot of expressivity and intensity, and what starts out as somber and beautiful and pining turns into expressionistic throwing paint against the canvas.
Joel, how do you react to Dan's sort of summary of what the piece is like? What's it like for you as a conductor? I mean, the last time you came here, it was Mozart.
This is nothing new, though. I think culture permeates most of the great music that we know and love, whether it's quoting the Requiem Mass, whether it's the Italian Symphony, whether it's the St. Matthew Passion of Bach. These pieces have a special meaning for us because they bridge, they connect basically with person in their daily life, and something that they already know about. And so this klezmer, of course, it was written for. What's so interesting about the Isaac the Blind, who he's talking about, who is this
protagonist of the piece, in a sense,
from Provence, is that it was written for someone who's kind of mostly blind, and that's Giora Feidman. And Gura Feidman was someone who was the first clarinet of the Israel Phil, in addition to being a klezmer. We recorded the overture on Hebrew themes by Prokofiev with Gura Feidman. Gura Feidman made that piece into a klezmer piece. It had never been played that way before. I don't even think it was conceived that way, but it's quite unique. And he came into our studio, and it was very obvious he didn't see very well. Maybe that helped his klezmer artistry. I don't know, because in the kind of little document that Osvaldo Golijov writes about this piece, he talks about how blindness is a characteristic of genius and of the great troubadours of all time, including Homer. That blindness implies a kind of a sensitivity to life that the rest of us don't quite comprehend or have.
Is it a difficult piece to conduct, to try and get the orchestra to go?
Interesting to bring that up, because there are hardly any recorded examples of it as a string orchestra piece, and it's really meant to be it was written for the Cleveland Quartet with Feidman, and his blindness figured into the concept of the piece. And as I understand, he did play it from memory. This is what they say about, it's hard to imagine, but I think he did do it. It's going to be a challenge because you have to, the freedom of the klezmer has to be respected and is really the focus. It's really a vehicle for the voice in three different contexts, basically, of the klezmer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dan, you really are the protagonist in this piece. But this leads directly into the next question, is the second of the two works on the program is a string orchestra arrangement of the Kreutzer Sonata. Now, this is absolutely new to me. I was blown away when I read the program for the first time. The Kreutzer Sonata is one of my great favorites, and I have a zillion recordings of it going back to the 1930s. And I'm trying very hard to imagine how this is going to sound purely as strings, because it is such an incredible collaboration of virtuoso pianist and virtuoso violinist.
Yeah.
So now the string orchestra has to take over the piano part.
And this is not a new arrangement. This is something from the 19th century. And,
really? Wow.
Yeah, I think it's not exactly contemporary with Beethoven, but it's soon after. This piece, which actually, and as opposed to the other Beethoven sonatas, well, with the exception of maybe the 10th sonata, it is a concerto for two instruments, basically. It goes beyond the scope of a sonata. The piece, of course, is a very, very big and ambitious piece structurally, and a big step forward for Beethoven in a way. So it's understandable why someone would want to expand it and expand with more expansive medium. Interestingly, it was conceived without a double bass. It was two cello parts, but we are going to have Bassi play this. Yeah.
But you've just said it's like a concerto for two virtuosos.
Right.
And since the violin and the piano have very distinct tonalities.
Yeah.
And when they're both going hell for leather, you can hear both of them very clearly.
Yeah.
Because of the sounds of the instruments. How does a string orchestra that you're trying to control deal with this kind of situation? Because just last night I refreshed my memory and listened to parts of the first movement, which I'm going to play a little bit at the end of this interview. And it's a wonderful violinist and pianist during the allegro section of the first movement who are just playing the hell out of the piece.
Yeah.
How are you going to manage that?
How am I going to manage that? Well, I'm really the person servicing the score. When Beethoven wrote for the quartet, as opposed to writing for the strings in the symphonies, or in the Missa Solemnis, whatever, he wrote entirely differently. It's very, Beethoven wrote a certain way when he dealt with the string orchestra, and an entirely other way when he dealt with the quartet. So this is the issue in terms of this arrangement. This is a little bit closer to the way in which he wrote for the symphonies. So it's not that foreign. It's not that, it's not really that far in terms of the Beethoven sound for the orchestra. I think you'll find it quite familiar. But
I
there
can't
are
wait.
issues. You know, there's some wonderful cadenza-like moments for the piano where they're playing arpeggios, and the question is, well, what do you do with that? That's the problem, you know.
Well, it sounds absolutely fascinating. I am so looking forward to it. I will be there to cheer you and Daniel on, and I hope you have enormous success. The first concert, Jim, can you tell us the dates?
The dates are March 16th at Temple Tifereth-Israel, 17th at Lakewood, the 18th of March at the Shrine of Stanislaus, and the 19th at St. Noel.
So, and that's in Willoughby.
4 nights. Yeah, Thursday through Sunday.
There's plenty of opportunity for people to come and hear these works, and I'm really thrilled to explore them and to hear what Joel and the arranger for one of my favorite all-time pieces is going to do with that. And I invite you all to join us for this soon-to-be very memorable concert. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time, and we're looking forward to a great evening.
Hi, this is Jim Mehrling again. It's time to hear that excerpt from the Kreutzer Sonata, first movement, the presto section that Eric described as the musicians playing the hell out of it before. I think you'll agree. Imagine this being played by a full-string orchestra. Incidentally, after this video, we will present an excerpt from the Golijov. Patricia Kopachinskaya was born in Moldavia when it was part of the Soviet Union, but her family escaped to Vienna when she was 12 years old, so she is very much a part of Western musical culture. Her accompanist is the Turkish pianist Fatsil Say.